Hello out there everyone, this is Chris, also known as CV, and welcome to my channel. Well, as we close in on the conclusion to this series, let's talk about covenant. And having walked through covenant history and types, what especially makes the covenants between God and the early patriarchs so significant? The answer, God's revelation. Without this primary purpose, the concept of covenant would not necessarily lose its value, but it would not show the greater purpose in God establishing covenants in the first place. Therefore, as we have seen in the Jewish tradition, God's revelation is metaphorically the glue that binds all the covenants together and with humankind. When thinking about God's revelation, including the Hebrew and then Israelite beliefs, now known as Judaism, the covenant that God delivered to Moses on Mount Sinai may immediately come to mind. After all, this covenant is central to Judaism. It is the defining time in Israelite history in which God, through Moses, had not only led a large number of Hebrew people out of Egypt, but also provided the rules, beliefs, and permanent home, that is Israel, for which Jewish people helped bring to fruition and which continues to define Judaism to this day. But why did God choose the Jewish people for his revelation, beginning with the Hebrews? The answer is, well, not well apparent. Still, the core relationship between God and the history of Judaism is indeed clear. God has desired a relationship with humankind, and through the, first Hebrews and then became Israelites, and as detailed in the book of Leviticus, God wished a harmonious relationship in which Jews would proclaim God's oneness and greatness to the world, keep to his laws, worship him in sanctity, and be a beacon to the world for the divine relationship, or for this divine relationship. Within the Torah, also called the Pentateuch, in Greek, and that also the Pentateuch refers to the first five books in the Bible we know as the Old Testament, and which make up the Torah. God demonstrates his authority and necessity to humankind. Though unlike other belief systems at this time, the religion that would become known as Judaism was not built on a distant relationship with multiple gods, nor based solely on reward and punishment, nor that humankind must initiate the connection with God. Rather, it was God who came down to humankind to reveal his will. And through his will, which also gave humans the freedom to enter into a relationship with God, God actively participated in the revelation he provided. The term for this is aptly called participatory theology. In short, participatory theology sees God and humankind working in tandem to author God's word. In other words, because some scholars have suggested the Torah as a human element to its wording, or has a human element to its wording, they believe the text itself could not be God's exact words. Instead, the Torah is divinely inspired, or an attempt to capture God's revelation into human language. We can include this for the Bible overall. Yet regardless of how exactly God's revelation was delivered and then compiled into the books that make up the Torah, and again, we can include the rest of the Bible, the relationship between covenant and God's revelation remains the same. The first Israelites, and again, as we know now as Jews, treated their covenants with God as a gift and with great honor. And through the entire Hebrew to Israelite to Jewish story is a push-pull relationship of obeying and rebelling against God's covenants and ultimate revelation, dealing with the results of not obeying the covenants, receiving blessings when remaining obedient, and the Jewish tradition of understanding that punishments and blessings are two halves of the covenant whole. Now, although this exploration in covenants has provided some of the key foundation that formed Judaism, this study, and as with studying ancient history overall, is just a starting point for delving into early Jewish life, a life which grew out of a Semitic people who exchanged influential ideas with neighboring civilizations, endured multiple ruling empires and wars, and morphed over time into a Hebrew and then Israelite people who instituted and attempted to uphold sacred covenants established with God. And oftentimes with not much success, but that's for the next part in this series. And while these covenants have roots in Near Eastern cultural practices, they are covenants that literally change the world as humankind now knows it. With the rise and establishment of Israel, its sometimes hobbled yet persistent influence under numerous regimes, well, in ancient history, Syrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, so on, and its widespread influence on Western society when combined with Christianity, Judaism carries a complex history of prosperity and devastation, yet all the while with a central goal in mind, keeping to the covenants. Now, here are a few questions to ponder as we move into the final part of this series. How does all this talk about covenant apply to our world today? If we know that our salvation through Jesus Christ is our final eternal covenant, shouldn't we strive every day to be a mirror of this to our fellow human beings? How much do we value covenants with each other? Could our lack of keeping to the principles of covenant, that we must remain morally obedient to God and to each other, be the reason why Western civilization has corrupted itself into a society of rights and privileges, identity politics, moral relativism, hyper-focused sexuality, and failed relationships? The final part in this series will answer these questions and give some solutions as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. In the meantime, hope you enjoyed this part in the series. Let's talk about covenant. As always, please leave comments. Please participate in the conversation. You're also welcome to email me at trcatholic@gmail.com. Again, trcatholic@gmail.com. And until the next video, the final part in this series, stay safe out there and God bless.